Good afternoon. In a series of high-level diplomatic engagements, Egypt continues to steer regional efforts towards consolidating the Gaza ceasefire and advancing long-term peace. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi held talks with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, reaffirming Egypt's pivotal mediation role as parallel discussions with US officials underscore Cairo's leadership ahead of the upcoming Sharm El-Sheikh Peace Summit. Join our special coverage on Qnews where we tackle the latest developments.
الآن في شرم الشيخ بتجرى مفاوضات لإنهاء الحرب.
I may go there sometime toward the end of the week, maybe on Sunday.
لازم أسجل بتقدير واحترام شديد للرئيس الأمريكي ترامب على إرادته الحقيقية في إنهاء الحرب خلال جولة المفاوضات الحالية.
Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has received a phone call from Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulidis discussing regional developments, notably the Sharm El-Sheikh agreement to end the Gaza war. The Cypriot President welcomed the accord and praised Egypt's decisive role and the personal efforts of President Sisi. President Sisi stressed full implementation, humanitarian access and reconstruction, emphasizing Egypt's coordination with Qatar and the US. He invited Christodoulidis to Egypt's peace celebration and proposed an international recovery conference. The two leaders also discussed strengthening Egypt-Cyprus cooperation in trade, tourism and investment. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has discussed the latest developments surrounding the Gaza ceasefire agreement reached through Egyptian, Qatari and US mediation with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. President Sisi emphasized the importance of consensus and full implementation across all phases of the accord. Guterres praised Egypt's pivotal role and efforts towards peace, called for international legitimacy through the UN Security Council and highlighted the need for immediate reconstruction. Both reaffirmed cooperation to improve Gaza's humanitarian situation and support Palestinian rights. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati and US Secretary of State Marco Rubio have held a phone call discussing regional developments and the progress in ending the Gaza war. The two reviewed preparations for the upcoming Sharm El-Sheikh Summit, co-chaired by Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and US President Donald Trump. Rubio described the summit as a historic milestone and praised Egypt's pivotal leadership in achieving the peace accord. Abdulati emphasized the importance of implementing the agreement's stages and reaffirmed Egypt's commitment to advancing the two-state solution as the path to lasting regional peace. US President Donald Trump has announced that Israeli detainees held in Gaza will begin returning along with the recovery of about 28 bodies. Trump said the Gaza agreement would benefit Israel, the Middle East and the world, expressing confidence in the durability of the ceasefire. Trump revealed plans to visit Israel to address the Knesset, then travel to Egypt for the official signing ceremony attended by several leaders. He also announced the creation of Peace Council to oversee Gaza's reconstruction.
It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. No, he was very happy with it. And I can tell you that I saw Israel dancing in the streets, but they were dancing in Qatar and Saudi Arabia and UAE and many, many countries. I saw Egypt. They were dancing. I'll be going to Israel. I'll be speaking at the Knesset. I'll be going to Israel. I'll be speaking at the Knesset, I think, early on. And then I'm also going to Egypt. I think I'll go to Cairo. I think that's where we're going, as opposed to the place of the signing. And we have a lot of leaders from all over the world coming, too. You know, they've been invited.
Egypt continues to send large-scale humanitarian aid to Gaza without interruption, leading efforts to break the famine through sustained convoys carrying food, clean water, medical supplies and vital fuel for hospitals. Hundreds of Egyptian trucks have entered the Gaza Strip via coastal and border routes, including a major convoy along Al-Rashid Street. That comes rather as the Egyptian Relief Committee has so far delivered over 500,000 food parcels. Gaza residents expressed deep appreciation for Egypt's steadfast support and its firm stance against displacement. Ladies and gentlemen, as we can see on screen right now is an earlier broadcast of the west of Nusayrat, where Egypt's humanitarian efforts towards Gaza have remained unwavering. Day after day, Egyptian aid convoys continue to cross into the Gaza Strip, carrying food, clean drinking water, medical supplies and essential fuel to keep hospitals running. Along Gaza's coastal Al-Rashid Street, a massive relief operation is underway, with Egypt dispatching long lines of trucks delivering life-saving assistance to families in need. That comes as the Egyptian Relief Committee for the People of Gaza has so far distributed more than 500,000 food parcels to residents, underscoring Cairo's steadfast commitment to alleviating the suffering of civilians. Across the Gaza Strip, Gazans have expressed deep appreciation for Egypt's leading role in ensuring the steadfast flow of aid, or rather the steady flow of aid, and for its firm stance against any attempt to displace the Palestinians from their homeland. As part of its ongoing humanitarian coordination, Egypt is also facilitating the movement of Gaza residents returning to the northern areas of the Gaza Strip, an effort that reflects both logistical capability and enduring solidarity with the people of Gaza. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi reaffirmed Egypt's unwavering commitment to peace, aid delivery and full implementation of the Sharm El-Sheikh Agreement. For further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the senior advisor at the European Institute of Peace, His Excellency Ambassador Hisham Youssef. Good afternoon to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews. And we've all followed the role Egypt has played and the great efforts exerted in order to achieve the Gaza ceasefire. Now, how do you assess those efforts, the role of Egypt, and how do you think the world perceive Egypt's role?
Thank you for having me. The role of Egypt has been instrumental in relation to Gaza for decades, so this is not new. However, the war that came as a result of the 7th of October was different from all previous wars. And this is why it required a coordinated effort and concerted effort by a number of players. So Egypt's role, as I mentioned, was instrumental, but it couldn't have done this on its own. It required help by other countries, including Qatar, Turkey, and the United States.
Right. If I may ask you here about President Trump's upcoming visit to Israel and Egypt, and what will it have on the regional diplomacy?
Well, the role of the United States is also crucial. Without the U.S., we wouldn't have reached what we have reached. But the role of the U.S. has to be taken for better or for worse, because the U.S. also is not really a balanced player in this situation. We have seen how it has agreed with a number of Arab and Islamic countries on all kinds of things. And then when the administration met with Netanyahu, they made some changes. And this resulted in concern by a number of Arab countries, and this concern was voiced publicly. We have also seen the United States being the only country in the world supporting the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. That is, a foundation that was supposed to provide humanitarian assistance, but instead the result of its efforts was to kill Palestinians that were going to seek humanitarian assistance. So the role of the U.S. has been mixed throughout this whole process. It has helped at some times, but it was also biased to Israel to a great extent that was detrimental to the whole process at other times. We hope that the visit of President Trump to Egypt and the summit that will take place will provide a huge push, not only for the continuation of the ceasefire, but for what is even more important, which is trying to see how peace can be achieved in a much more sustainable way on all kinds of fronts. And of course, not only for the West Bank, but also for Gaza, but also for the West Bank and for the Palestinian question as a whole.
And that's the other question, Your Excellency. If I may ask you here about the Sharm El-Sheikh Summit, and how do you think this summit would advance the goals of the peace agreement at large? And we're not speaking just about the Gaza crisis, but we're speaking about the Palestinian cause at large.
Well, that is, I have to admit, I don't expect that much from this summit in relation to this issue, because this issue has a lot on its plates already. It is about maintaining the ceasefire,
but
making sure.
It's just a point to advance with other negotiations. So will it be able to advance the upcoming negotiations on the other phases that will be later discussed?
Absolutely, but the most pressing issues are issues related to early recovery in relation to the issue of security and having the stabilization force, allowing Israel to make another withdrawal from the parts that it is occupying in Gaza and so on. And the day after in relation to the governance of Gaza. So these are all very pressing issues. So sadly, what is urgent will take over what is important. And what is important, as you said, is the Palestinian question and resolving the Palestinian question. But sadly, the focus will continue to be on the most pressing issues in relation to what needs to be done next in Gaza. And as a matter of fact, we also have to admit that the West Bank has been ignored, despite the fact that it is also passing through another kind of hell as well in relation to settler violence, in relation to settler activities, incursions, demolishing homes, and so on. So I agree with you that this is needed, but I would hope that this would be the case, but I have my doubts that this will materialize because the focus will be on the immediate needs of the continuation of the ceasefire and the next steps in the Trump plan.
Now, so we've all followed the Egyptian humanitarian operations, which continued during the post period and throughout the Gaza crisis. How do you think those operations influenced the international perception of Egypt as as one of its regional leadership, and particularly at this very particular area?
Well, since the war started, Egypt has indicated that it is willing to become the hub for humanitarian assistance. The problem was not in Egypt, and the whole world understands that. The problem was in Israel. And as a result of the practices of the Israeli government, we have witnessed starvation in Gaza. So despite all the efforts that was done by Egypt and other countries around the world, whether in the region or beyond, we were unable to stop the starvation in Gaza. And even President Trump himself acknowledged that there is starvation. So we can't say that the world has been successful in relation to humanitarian assistance. Yes, Egypt has done as much as it can, but all what the world has done was not enough to stop the starvation in Gaza because of the Israeli practices. We hope that as a result of the current ceasefire, that Israel will abide by its commitments. It didn't abide by its commitments in relation to humanitarian assistance after the ceasefire in January 2025. So I hope that this time it will abide by its commitments in relation to humanitarian assistance, because the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains devastating, whether it's in relation to food, water, healthcare, you name it. The situation is continues to be devastating, and the hope that this would be reversed as a result of this ceasefire, and as a result of the seriousness in which President Trump is showing in advancing the situation forward. So this issue of humanitarian assistance, as well as early recovery, and hopefully not in the distant future in relation to reconstruction, will become the crucial dimension of the effort in the months to come.
Now, another important issue was Egypt's firm stance against the displacement of the Palestinians from their homeland. Now, how do you view the significance of Egypt's stance, and what is required from the international community to support this stance till the end?
Well, I think this was a huge success to Egyptian diplomacy because from day one, it has indicated that this is a red line. And I think nobody supported Israel in its effort to have mass displacement from Gaza and also from the West Bank, except the United States as well. By the position that was adopted initially by President Trump, asking for building a Riviera and asking for the Palestinians to leave. This has been reversed by the U.S. And now the U.S. in its latest plan indicates that not only people will stay in Gaza, but those who leave should be allowed to come back. So, and this is significant and important. Now, what the international community needs to do is to make sure that people have hope. And hope will not come except when they feel that Gaza will witness a reconstruction plan that is commensurate with the level of destruction that it has witnessed, which is around 90% destruction of the whole of the Gaza Strip. So we hope that the international community would be willing to support the Palestinians in reconstruction in all kinds of ways. The question is not only in relation to finance, but also in relation to putting pressure to bear on Israel, because Israel has always hindered reconstruction, recovery efforts. And, if it has hindered all the humanitarian assistance, what do you think they will do with reconstruction? They will continue to argue that these materials may be used in different ways and etc. to hinder reconstruction, because reconstruction will provide hope to people, therefore they will stay in Gaza. But Israel continues to aim at, forcing the Palestinians in all kinds of ways to leave Gaza Strip and the West Bank, as a matter of fact.
Right, looking ahead, what steps are needed to ensure that the Gaza ceasefire evolves into lasting peace from your point of view?
Well, the road ahead is very challenging and very complicated.
Yes, indeed.
So if we just talk about the security issue, okay, what is the mandate of the forces that would go? Would the mandate be to protect Palestinian civilians? Or will Israel insist that the role of this force is simply to disarm Hamas? Will this be an easy proposition? No. What about what will happen to the tunnels? Will Israel be convinced that the tunnels have all been destroyed? It's not that easy, and so on. So the challenges are huge. But as we discussed, the question is, yes, we have to advance further on all these issues in the coming months, but we have to keep in mind that stability will not be achieved without a two-state solution and without having the final settlement that would be satisfactory to the Palestinians. Otherwise, this region will not see any stability.
Now, Your Excellency, we've seen the invitation of President Sisi to U.S. President Trump to come here, and from the United States, the U.S. President said that he would call for a global summit here in Egypt. What do you think this reveals about the U.S. intentions for the upcoming stage, and what do you think? How do you think Israel would respond given the divide inside the Israeli coalition government itself?
Well, I think this is extremely important. And I think that this is something for the credit of President Trump, because he will also hear that all these leaders that will come will tell him that you should focus on the two-state solution. And this is what happened recently in the General Assembly in the UN, when there was the meeting that was co-chaired by Saudi Arabia and France, where the message was very clear. The route has to go through a process that would lead to the establishment of a Palestinian state. And they have also a number of key countries in the world, including two key members of the permanent members of the Security Council, France and the UK, recognize a Palestinian state. So this is the movement where the international community is going. And it would be important for President Trump to hear this from all the leaders who are going to come and all the representatives who are going to come. And Israel also. This is important for public opinion in Israel to listen to all these people, for them to understand that in order for them to achieve the security that they all aspire to achieve, they need to have a settlement with the Palestinians that is according to international law, not according to the whims of Israeli coalitions, because international law is very clear on where this conflict has to end.
Right. That was His Excellency Ambassador Hisham Youssef from Cairo, the Senior Advisor at the European Institute of Peace. We thank you so much for the very valuable analysis here on Qnews. And back to our coverage. Hamas and other Palestinian factions have announced in a joint statement that they are working with Egyptian mediation to convene an urgent national meeting aimed at unifying the Palestinian stance following the ceasefire. Hamas described the current phase as an opportunity to strengthen social solidarity and support affected families in Gaza, emphasizing cooperation among factions and institutions for reconstruction. The movement welcomed Arab and international participation in rebuilding efforts, reaffirmed appreciation for Egyptian, Qatari and Turkish mediation, and urged continued U.S. and international pressure to ensure Israel's full compliance with the agreement. Earlier, Hamas has announced that mediators have informed the movement that humanitarian aid will begin entering the Gaza Strip freely starting today, marking the first unrestricted delivery since the ceasefire came into effect. The movement added that mediators have also initiated contacts with the Gaza Electricity Company to resume its operations, a step viewed as vital for restoring essential services and easing the humanitarian situation across the Gaza Strip as part of the first phase of the Sharm El-Sheikh peace agreement's implementation. A spokesperson for Gaza's civil defense has announced that approximately 250,000 displaced Palestinians have returned to Gaza City since the ceasefire took effect. He added that, however, rescue teams continue to face immense challenges as dozens of victims killed during Israeli attacks remain trapped beneath the rubble. The spokesperson emphasized that the civil defense lacks the necessary equipment and resources to retrieve the bodies, urging international organizations to provide urgent assistance to address the humanitarian and operational constraints hampering recovery efforts. And for further analysis, we're joined from Nadareth by political science professor Dr. Sohail Diab. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews. Let me start by asking, would you evaluate Egypt's contribution to securing and sustaining the Gaza truce?
Good evening for you and your viewers. Egypt's stance didn't start from today. It's a historic stance. They always supported the Palestinians and the right for self-determination. But this war, there were some stops that emphasized this stance. The first one was when Egypt stopped the forced displacement of the Palestinians and refused this. This was very important to stop another displacement and to happen another Nakba. Egypt played an important role to stop another Nakba. The second thing was Egyptian mediation in order to reach an exchange deal in the last 2 years. They played an important role to close the gap between the parties in order to stop this war. The third role was the efforts exerted in order to provide the humanitarian aid and to link with international organizations in order to for the New York Summit for those state solutions and all the Arab and European initiatives. All these efforts exerted by Egypt are very clear. It's clear that Egypt had an important role in the past and now. In my opinion, what's new now is that the whole world, whether Europe or the American party, now realize in the end that Egypt's role in the region is an important one. They can't be ignored despite the fact that the parties were trying to ignore the role, especially in the first couple of months. But now we see Trump saying that he wants to visit Sharm El-Sheikh to sign the agreement. I think that is important. Also, the Egyptian saying that they want guarantees in order to maintain this deal and to go through diplomatic and political solutions. This is an example of the U.S. realizing that Egyptian role and position in the region, Islamic and Arab region, is very important and it's a crucial role that cannot be ignored with any way. In my opinion, that is the Egyptian role.
Right, let me here ask you how Palestinians perceive President Trump's forthcoming visit to Israel and Egypt, and how do they think this would be influential, and definitely how will that reflect on the diplomatic dynamics?
The Palestinians' view in the beginning is that this visit to the Middle East by Trump will make the Western powers directly responsible to implement the phases of this agreement. So this means that this is an American cradle in order to stop Israel to breach this agreement in any phase like they did the last 9 times during the negotiations. This visit is important. It's not just symbolically, but also on the ground. It's an American promise to implement the deal and to move forward in order to reach political reconciliation, not just in the Palestinian cause, but other regional files. The second thing that there is an Arab role, an Islamic Arab role, an Egyptian role, a critical one in this phase, not just to reach a deal, but to guarantee the implementation of said agreement in the next phase. And the third thing, which is the Palestinian thing. So in order, every 3 years there won't be a war. The Palestinians hope and expect that this is an historic event.
Indeed, Dr. Suhail, this is a historic step, and we hope for the next phase to continue until we reach all phases of the agreement. That was Dr. Suhail Diab from Nadaris, the political science professor. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News. And I guess that brings us to the end of our special coverage for now. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Q News EGY to stay informed. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.